Let's talk now to Imtiaz Gul, who's in Islamabad, and he is the Executive Director of the Centre for Research and Security Studies. Thanks so much for joining us, Imtiaz. Now, we've been looking at the fact that this is now gone much beyond blasphemy. Take us, please, through your assessment of these protests, which are escalating so much as we speak.
Well, I think the protest started over a piece of legislation that the ruling party had enacted together with other members of the parliament. And this fringe group objected to the removal of certain clauses of the constitution with regard to the finality, belief in the finality of the Prophet Muhammad. But I think since day one, ever since they started their march from Lahore, came in to occupy positions at the intersection of Islamabad, the handling has been terrible, very non-innovative, and based on miscalculations. I think that from day one, they shouldn't have been allowed at all to occupy this extremely important position, which has now led to the paralysis of the capital as well as of several roads leading into Islamabad. Right now, consultations between the army and the Prime Minister's office are going on to determine as to if at all the army were to be deployed in Islamabad and on the outskirts of Islamabad, whether they would act by their own standard operating procedures, or would they be constrained by the instructions of the government.
Tell me a bit more about that, Imtiaz. Exactly what sense would it make to get the army, as you've been explaining, further involved?
Well, because the police and the city administration have miserably failed. They gave simply too much time to the protesters the last 19-20 days. So the protesters basically had enough time to prepare a strategy in case they were attacked. This is what they did yesterday when the crackdown against them began. Within hours, protests in many other cities also broke out, basically on the instructions of this maverick religious leader, Mr. Khadim Hussain Rizvi, who has emerged from nowhere to occupy a central position. So this was an extremely miscalculated attempt and mishandled attempt, I think, by the civilian government. Now it threatens also to destabilize other parts of the country, and hence the need to possibly then invite and let the army finish this off.
Okay. Now, Imtiaz, could you explain what is the political context now in Pakistan and how secure is Pakistan's government?
Well, I think the context is basically the fledgling image of former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, who had been deposed under the orders of the Supreme Court on corruption charges, and he had been trying to up the ante by challenging that ruling by the Supreme Court. He is suggesting that it is the military establishment behind the consensus Supreme Court ruling. They have also been suggesting that the protesters outside Islamabad are also there on the behest of possibly of the military intelligence agencies or the military establishment itself. And this way they have tried to, he has tried to salvage and rehabilitate his own image. And this way he's trying to rally more political support by suggesting that all this may be happening simply to keep him from the power.
Okay. Thanks so much for that update and analysis. Imtiaz Gul, who is in Islamabad, the Executive Director of the Centre for Research and Security Studies. Thank you.